Our series, Show and Tell, will take you inside some of the great libraries, both public and private, to explore books and treasures from Jewish history.
So we're looking now at Arba'ah Turim, so Yaakov ben Asher's Code of Jewish Law, printed in Berlin in 1702. This happened to be owned by one Yaakov Emden, Yaakov or Jacob Emden. He used this book, as I like to say, practically to death. You can see as he was studying it, he marked off what he was up to, including in the commentary, and his annotations are just throughout all the pages we have. It's not in great shape because of just how well he used this book.
He's the one who beat this up.
He is clearly the one who beat this up. These annotations are all in his handwriting, and he studied it extensively.
And you got this again as you...
So this came as part of that collection we talked about earlier. That original
collection, wow.
Yeah, the collection was sold in two parts. So the three men's libraries were sold first in the early 1860s, and then this was actually the second half of that sale. So the first part of the sale went to, the first part of the collection went to the British Library, where it is today. So they also have material from these three libraries, including the Golden Haggadah, some amazing manuscripts that ended up there as part of that collection.
Why is this particular tour so famous and beloved?
So Yaakov Emden writes in one of his works, he tells a story that he used to study his Torah by candlelight. And one night while he was studying, the candle actually tipped and fell. And he writes that it burnt a hole in the pages of the manuscript, of the book. But it was miraculous because the hole ended at the place where one makes a blessing on miracles. And from what I can tell, it looks like he's a page or two off, but it's still quite close. And it's pretty amazing to know this story that he talks about his own book.
And you can see
and then
the
to
burn.
you see it happening in real time.
And it ends right here in Hilchos
Brachos. It's in Hilchos Brachos, yeah. But it's not quite, I think it's like a page off from actually the blessing on miracles. But it's pretty close. And it's wonderful because we can say, yes, this story did indeed happen.
What else do you have from Rabbi Yaakov Emden's library?
So we have material not only from his library, but from his father, the Chacham Tzvi, Tzvi Hirsch Ashkenazi's library. We have a work where the Chacham Tzvi's father, whose name was Yaakov, writes about the birth of his son, Tzvi Hirsch. So a number of works, some not all as well used as this one, but bearing markings of the Emden Ashkenazi family.
So I want to ask what I almost think is almost a lewd question, but how much is this worth? When you think about pricing, how much is this worth? Or what goes through your head when somebody asks you, how much is something in this library worth?
So this is only one volume of 4. It's a hard question to answer, and I once a major bookseller of Judaica once told me that a book is worth as much as the richest person is willing to spend on that book. So it really depends on the market. In the last 5 years or so, for instance, there have been significant collectors that have been really interested, for example, in collecting Judaica Americana books or manuscripts relating to Jews in America. And so the market for that material has jumped very high. Sometimes you'll see that books about famous rabbis or Hasidic rebbes sell for huge amounts.
Exorbitant. Yeah.
And so it could just be a couple hundred years old, but once you find that inscription, that autograph, then suddenly it jumps to 6 figures, sometimes even 7 figures. So I couldn't put a price on this particular book.
And we shouldn't expect to see it on the market.
And I better not see it on the market. We do not, our policy is not to deaccession material from the collection.
Deaccession material. Tell me what that exactly means.
Deaccession, so to accession something is to bring something into the collection.
Provide access? Is that the word?
I wonder if that's where, no, yeah, you could be right. I don't know.
I heard that word for the first time just now.
So to deaccession is to remove it from the collection. And sometimes libraries have to do that. They're tight on funds. Their mission has changed. There are all sorts of reasons. But I'm grateful to work in a collection where our policy is not to do that. The only time, if it happens, it's because of an exception, and it's not because we're selling it for the money. There was one case where a book had arrived here due to, it should not have left the original collection that it came in. And so that book is now back in its rightful home.
Sounds like a story.
It is a story. I can't go into too many more details, unfortunately. But I was very happy to be able to make that return. That's not something that happens very often. I will say, in some cases, there was recently a symposium at the UCLA because they had found that some material in their collection had been looted from, I think it was the Jewish Museum of Prague. I don't know if it was the Jewish Museum or if it was another collection there. And they returned them. So most of our collections arrived here before World War II. So that's not something that we encounter. Mm-hmm. But those are things that do happen, and then a library has to, if they're they sometimes have to return that material.